Gratitude, divines and divinettes. I am Goddess B, and welcome to SelfJourneyS. Today's topic is Destination SelfJourneyS. The destination is SelfJourneyS. The destinations are SelfJourneyS. So let's get right into it. Thank you so much for joining my channel. This is a pink plush special in which I will be coming on and giving you all a little chat about just things in life. No specific topic at all times. Sometimes I may get on here and I may do a meal, whether it be a normal meal or a vegan meal or a plant-based dish or a travel dish through my explorations. I will do many videos on food and the energy tied to it, and as well as the senses and the senses beyond the five senses that we've grown to know about, and just different things that align with the elements of the SelfJourneyS experience. SelfJourneyS is all about the individual part of the experience. When it comes to the pillars, though, it expands beyond ourselves or oneself, and it goes further into depth of relationship, friendship, partnership, community, and the world at large. So ultimately, the tribal essence of SelfJourneyS is to find that tribal warrior within your individual self and be a warrior to aligning with your higher self and your higher purpose. When it comes to SelfJourneyS being the destination, the meaning behind that is that when we look at the way that we kind of hear, or we may know, and you may be familiar with some quotes that I may use or different things that I've grown to hear as far as commonalities from my background culture, being a Black American, but also having a background in the West Indies and other native cultures that are indigenous to parts around the world, of melanated communities that I've come to find through my own SelfJourneyS pilgrimage so far, are a part of my genealogy and my DNA. And I'll get further into the story about my particular SelfJourneyS and the part that I took with my SelfJourneyS of finding out more about my roots. Not just the roots of my actual body, but the roots of my background, my historical background, my family, and where I come from, as well as where they came from. And so the SelfJourneyS being the destination is meaning that there is more than just the destination. There's the process. And we are accustomed in life to sort of chase, whether it's intentional or unintentional or consciously or unconsciously, we tend to chase the destination. We tend to focus on reaching the destination. And with SelfJourneyS technically being a term used to represent the process of life and of existing, of this particular mission we took as humans to be not just spiritual beings, but we're spiritual beings living an existential experience. This is like an assignment. So Earth being an assignment means that you have to actually insert yourself or assert yourself into the mission or the game, or however you may identify life for yourself. So when we want to look at the process and we see SelfJourneyS in it, it's understanding that your SelfJourneyS is the process, but it is also the destination. So let me get further into that a little bit after I go over the pillars of SelfJourneyS. So SelfJourneyS is the destination. The destination is SelfJourneyS. And so to tap into the pillars, there are so many different structures and systems and hierarchies that we can go by, that we've learned about in history. And I'm speaking from the American education that I received, in which I learned about different, about the senses, about the five senses. I've also, as I've gotten older, I've learned about the other senses beyond the five senses we know of, based on sight, smell, touch, taste, and hearing. So those are the five, but there are more, in which I'll get into either in this video or in another video specifically about the senses. However, this video being about the destination is SelfJourneyS. I wanted to make it clear about the process and how individuality requires attentiveness to the process. The process can't be ignored because that is the reason why the destination exists. If there was no process, there would be no destination. If there is not a race, there would be no finish line, right? So that's the kind of way that I'm trying to express and explain the importance of not excluding SelfJourneyS from being a part of the process, but also recognizing that it's also the destination itself. With the pillars, based on how I was saying, there's different things we grew up knowing and systems and laws we go by, like for not self-awareness, but self-awareness and just different elements of the self. I'll get back to it once it comes to. But there's a system called Maslow's hierarchy, and you can look further into that. I'll try to add a link to an article you can read about Maslow's hierarchy and how that was designed for people to reach self-actualization. That's what I was looking for when I mentioned self-awareness. Self-actualization is something that's major in the SelfJourneyS. But when I say it's major in the SelfJourneyS, I'm saying it's major in life as a human to reach self-actualization if you want to reach a certain place of allowing nirvana to be a part of your current life journey. Let's get into the pillars of SelfJourneyS and the hierarchy that we could follow in your individual SelfJourneyS destination process. So the destination is SelfJourneyS. Another point that I would like to touch on before we get into the pillars is that this particular hierarchy for SelfJourneyS is not a one cookie cutter thing. The way that I'm expressing the use of the practice of SelfJourneyS is based on my particular structure for my individuality and what suits me at this particular phase and stage of my life. But the SelfJourneyS is an individual practice. It is an individual hierarchy. It is a tribal essence of your individual existence, mission, and purpose. The SelfJourneyS is also a design designated for every individual to create a practice of their own, one that will be honored, not necessarily needing to be honored by others, but will be honored by you because it is yours. So when I speak right now about the pillars and the baseline of SelfJourneyS and its structure, that is just the foundation of basically for anyone to use in regards to designing their own practice. Another thing about the SelfJourneyS structure and practice that I'm about to share with you about the hierarchy and pillars of SelfJourneyS, if you decide to walk further into your own practice utilizing the SelfJourneyS baseline format, you can still add to your own individual journeys and path what is necessary for you, what is a necessity for you in order for you to have an effective practice. The SelfJourneyS practice is to bring you closer to your higher self, bring you closer to your purpose, to attract more of what aligns with you and what actually keeps you in your highest vibration to reach and be aligned with your relationship with the creator of all that exists and the creator in you. So when I say that, I'm gonna be talking more like about all those types of things like as time goes on. But for now, it's all about just really understanding the baseline foundation of the SelfJourneyS practice and how to really interpret the hierarchy for yourself if you feel as though it's a system that could possibly work for you if you are intentional about where you are in your life and you want to be intentional from here on. Just like healing. Healing is something that I feel like we are doing once we are out of the womb. Once we enter into this particular lifetime in the bodies that we are in, I feel as though that's when we initially start the process of life. We are already starting the race. We are already in the self journeys straight out the womb. And from there, we must be intentional about healing, because healing is started while we're in the womb, and it will continue throughout our lives. But at some point, I feel it is optional for each individual to be intentional about their own self journeys. We can live life in such a way where we are just living and we are not overwhelming ourselves with the process and what is going on and happening in the process or around us while we're having our own process. And while there are self journeys of our individual selves, I will later go further into how much self journeys is a worldwide thing. It is about the planet. The planet we live upon has a self journeys of its own. The earth is constantly trying to purge and cleanse and heal and thrive and make space, have peace. I mean, don't you think the earth we live upon desires stability and love? So these are things that I feel, as from a humanitarian perspective, there is more to the self journeys than just our own individual existence. But the foundations do begin with ourselves. A lot of times I like to use the quote, if you are not doing something for yourself, it is kind of hard to anticipate it being done in return. Or another expression similar to that is, you get what you receive. You should give what you get, or you attract what you are, or you attract what you think, because our thoughts can design our destination, things like that. You know, all those types of things I feel are all compiled under the same category. So in terms of your individuality and your individual self journeys, that part of the practice has to start with you. I don't care if you have 10 children, whether they're biologically yours or you're a foster, or you have students, or you have 5 jobs and you own several corporations. You can be completely by yourself, but just overwhelmed with the workload you have, or overwhelmed with the nothingness you may have going on. Whatever is going on in your life, you are going to start, if you choose to walk into the self journeys path, with first understanding that you are in control. And that is one of the first things that, in the midst of designing this practice, I realized that I am in control of this path. I am in control of the results, the consequences of my actions. Everything is under the umbrella of my control. So to be and act or live in oblivion is also a choice. And to allow the world to be too much in control of what I am and who I am in life can take away from the control that I already have. We can be submissive and relinquish our control to powers that have more resources that can provide for us and things like that. But we can alter our mentality to allow ourselves to develop practices in life, or develop habits in life that are not bad for us, but are actually good for us. And there are so many different points that I want to touch on about the self journeys. So before I ramble on too much, I'm going to keep it short and structured in this video, specifically discussing the destination is self journeys. And everything I just said aligns with that, because the process goes hand in hand with the destination. So self journeys, being the process of life itself, requires your understanding and the open acceptance. So the top 3 things that I like to say should be done when you're trying to embark on a self journeys pilgrimage, where you are intentional about you're living from whatever point you are today. You are choosing to be intentional. So the first thing you must know is that the destination is SelfJourneyS. The destination is yourself. The destination is the process, and you must start to become present and engaging in this process that involves you. With SelfJourneyS being the destination and there being a yearning for alignment of one's carnal body with one's higher self, the pillars allow you to see and understand ways to align with different systems you may know or not know, or may have heard of or may not have heard of throughout life. For example, I like to use and lean on not just Maslow's hierarchy, but the chakra system. The chakra system really aligned my spiritual body, allowing me to find grounding, allowing me to find my power, my life source within myself, allowing me to embrace and accept things that I am not able to change. And just representation of a biblical reference or context having to do with my religious background. My religion is completely different from my SelfJourneyS practice. I want to make that clear that I was born into Christianity. I was raised Christian. My mother was Christian. My father had a different background and belief, but with that Creole Cajun background on my father's side, and with the more Native American and Latina West Indies version on my mother's side, and then the blends of all of the ancestral origins that I learned about that even my parents didn't know. All of those things made me want to research and understand the dynamic of my gifts, and that urged me to allow myself to understand the practices amongst the one I knew of. So growing up being a Christian child, I was a child of God. Jesus was my best friend, is my best friend. That was my mindset when it comes to spiritual practice. And there is nothing about the Christian faith that I can say today hindered me in any way from reaching where I am today post my spiritual awakening, my initial spiritual awakening. And that first spiritual awakening from my side, for us all, is our initial birth. So being able to have a rebirth at the age of 28 going into 29, I was able to really see and understand parts of not only myself, but the world at large. But the way that I reached my SelfJourneyS actually began with all of my external knowledge, all of my external information that was swarming me over time. So I would never discredit the faith that I grew up under, and I don't discredit even today the practices that I learned were hidden, that were still tied to my roots. I honor every practice that exists that involves finding and reaching a common ground or understanding about what is the creator, who is the creator, how to define the creator, the true and only omnipotent, omnipresent creator that I feel as though is the reason why we all exist. I do not discredit demigods. I do not discredit personal power or the higher self that exists. I do not discredit the piece of the creator that we all have within our individual selves. And I also do not honor any of those things above the creator over all things. And that is a personal preference to my practice. I did not feel as though everything that I learned outside of me brought me to my SelfJourneyS in order to lessen everything that I was learning about myself and everything that I was becoming. Everything that I am becoming is very important for me to reach the destination. With the pillars, I want to be clear that although it was necessary for me to adhere to the research of the different hierarchies and systems and the chakra system, meditation, and yoga practice and all those different formats really helped me to align with my higher self. So that is also a practice or a religion or a background of a communal practice that I found to be very interesting, but also very enduring for me, because it was good for me in terms of learning how to understand health. I was very interested in health, and I wanted to be a doctor out of high school. I was interested in everything having to do with the body. So I studied everything, in education, in, American education, about biology, chemistry, the sciences, anatomy, physiology, everything having to do with the body, the mind. And it's a constant thing. I'm still today learning. But what I've stopped to realize is that in the midst of establishing a spa and a mindfulness community, practices for the mindfulness community that I built and everything that I am establishing, I recognize that it was never really something that wasn't already ideal or something that wasn't already constructed. But what I'm choosing to do with this practice is compile everything that I so far recognized of the process in order to enhance the baseline of the practice, and utilizing those self-actualization hierarchy systems, as well as utilizing my Christian faith background and the chakra systems, and how much that really opened up my spiritual centers. And spiritual centers being the term that I learned was used by my ancestors, my Native American ancestors. And I'm going to be utilizing references of the chakra systems in order to be able to give people a clear understanding of the basis of the foundations. They're not completely aligned with that, but that system plays a major part and role in the way that you can reach a certain place to match and meet and maintain a relationship with your higher self. We'll talk more as well about breath work and the importance of intermittent fasting in a later video. So just learning how much having a practice and a plan really assist you throughout the process. And I'm going to have another video about trusting the process after this one. But our religion I would like to acknowledge, in which I am now further understanding how to align with this faith the most, other than the Rastafarian faith and practice and background. That is something that I feel is more than just a religion. That is a actual practice, just like Hinduism and different things having to do with the Buddhist practices. But what I aligned with the most was Islam, being married into Islam. My spouse was already a part of the Islamic community, which opened up the doorway for me to be welcome in understanding the faith, learning the faith from not only him, but from the imam that he was inferior to at the time, as well as continuing to learn as he's learning and growing as he's growing, becoming my own version, better versions of myself, while he's doing the same for himself. And the importance of the SelfJourneyS is that although the Creator has aligned me with a spouse, I am still on the journeys with myself, and I'll be taking on more conversations with you all about singlehood, and then more about wifehood, and then more about motherhood and mother, maiden, crone, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, understanding hierarchies, systems, the matriarch, the patriarch, and not just the verses of them, not just the comparisons, but the connections, and understanding egalitarian authorities and how they once worked before. So I have so much I want to share with you all, and I hope this video is received by anyone who receives it very well. I may pick out a scripture for biblical context, a surah, as well as a angel number card for us to have a unified conclusion for the day. But I wanted to touch the baseline of destination SelfJourneyS. And before I wrap up, the most important part of the video is just to give you a cut and dry understanding of destination SelfJourneyS and its pillars and the hierarchy of it. When it comes to the pillars, this is the most important part of the destination SelfJourneyS. The pillars, the foundational pillars, align with everything having to do with the spiritual centers. The first pillar is the G self. The G solo represents God, Creator, God, Goddess, Source, Jah, Yahweh, Jeshua, Yahuwah. The Most High Creator is what the G represents. It represents the above all things. It represents the within that is higher than what we are accustomed to thinking is all that we need. So the self is the higher version of you. It is the part of you in which you initiate this happy inwards of your destination SelfJourneyS. The G self is the time where you can link with your root. It aligns with the root chakra of the systems of that particular hierarchy. And in the midst of learning about my root chakra and grounding myself, I became rooted in my faith, and I was able to relinquish my fears, allowing myself to understand my fears. And I did this thing called observing in my root. And the time that I took to really understand that part of myself, I unblocked these lower chakras. The lower chakras being my root, my sacral, and my solar plexus. Those terms aligning with the chakra system and the spiritual centers. The SelfJourneyS practice includes that rootedness, finding that inward. That happy inwards is the initiation of your SelfJourneyS practice, your intentional practice. There will be times where you won't be on a schedule or you won't necessarily be attentive to the particular practice, but the intent is to start, to begin. The happy inwards requires you to be intentional about you, your destination SelfJourneyS. It depends on you. So that G self is the higher self, and that God Goddess version of you, that part of you that allows you to know that you have faith and that your faith is bigger than all of the obstacles that have, are, and will occur in your life. I will get into depth about the G self at a later video, but I'm just giving you all the basis of the pillars. So that was the G self, and now we're getting into unity. So the G self and then unity. The G self, like I said, align more with the root, but the unity aligns with the sacral. The sacral chakra is all about unity in the sense of what you will be doing in the part of your practice and SelfJourneyS that allows you to unclog and declutter everything that is in the area of your perineum and your womb and your below your belly button, pretty much. Your root in G self is in the lower area of your body, more seated under your butt bone and at the bottom and base of your spine, while your sacral and the unity part of your SelfJourneyS practice resides in the womb area or the area beneath your belly button. So when it comes to the unity, it's more than just about community unity. As mentioned in this video, throughout this video, SelfJourneyS destination is about you. Initiation of this particular practice requires to do everything of the practice for yourself first. The judgment requires you to do for yourself first. And this is because everything having to do with what you will do as you're becoming requires you to understand how to supply those same things for yourself. The G self of you that you will want to encourage others to define for themselves has to be found of you first. The I am who of you is what will describe and define who you are to yourself before anyone else knows. It's important to know thyself as well as align with the great Ma'at, laws of Ma'at, as well as laws and practices aligned with God's laws and even man's law, is to know thyself. That is the first rule of thumb. And that is why the G self of the SelfJourneyS practice is so important, because you must understand every version of you that has existed and finding ways to align with the shadow version of you as well as the light version of you, because your shadow part is more the rare and real essence of you. And I say that because the dark night of the soul, which I will also talk about, is something that you may experience in your spiritual awakening if you happen to go into your first spiritual awakening through choosing to take a happy inwards into the destination SelfJourneyS. But that does not need to be something to place fear upon you. It is something that I feel you should be elated about, simply because reaching a point where you can truly face yourself in life is the most powerful thing ever. Back to speaking about the sacral and the unity part of your SelfJourneyS practice. The unity part is uniting, like I said, more than the community, but it's about aligning all the things of you, being in union with all things of you. Your masculine and feminine energy, if you are a woman, is still something that can be aligned and united in you. You having masculine energy does not mean that you are over masculine. It just means that you have masculine energy, so you should tend to it and learn how to balance it with your femininity. Your femininity is something that is not necessarily going to be genuinely natural. So it's necessary in the SelfJourneyS practice to unite them both by actually attending to them both. Both energies require your attention, just as much as your heart and your mind should be aligned and in union, just as much as your soul and your spirit should be aligned and in union, just as much as your left side and your right side of your brain and your body should be aligned and in union. And just finding balance is the part of this part of the practice requires just basically choosing to unite every part of yourself, every element of you. And after observing, you must allow yourself to accept. And observation, acceptance is a part of the G self and the unity. Now going into the solar plexus. These are all three still a part of the lower chakras, but the lower chakras do not mean that they are lesser of importance. They are not less of importance by being the lower chakras. They are the lower chakras because they are beneath the heart. The heart is the center. So we have not reached the heart yet in this conversation. However, I wanted to make that clear in my particular delivery of Destination SelfJourneyS and what you should be allowing yourself to use these foundations for. So the first two foundations we've discussed were the G self, and then we mentioned the unity. Now we are mentioning peace. With the peace, it aligns with the hierarchy of the chakra system named solar plexus. The solar plexus chakra aligns with the peace element and foundation of Destination SelfJourneyS, because your SelfJourneyS requires your power. If you have a blocked solar plexus, I'll get into details, like I said, in further videos about each foundation at a later date. However, just for general information, when your solar plexus is blocked, there is chaos in your individual spirit. Your individuality has disruption. And sometimes you may not even know or understand what the void you may feel in this area is. And the solar plexus, for reference to the physical body, is above the belly button. So while the tailbone is where our G self resides, and beneath the belly button is where the unity resides, above the belly button is where the peace resides. And the peace in that area of the gut is such a needed element in that space. And like I said, we'll get more into details about it, but the importance about the peace in reference to the solar plexus is to define one's power. And to reach the power, you have to have the peace, the peaceful balance in this area of your physical body and your spiritual body. And now I'm going to get straight into the center of your foundation, which is love, the most important of them all, the highest above them all, even in biblical reference of them all is love. Faith, hope, love. So with this part and element, This is the balancer of the scales. This is what balances the lower chakras and the higher chakras. It's the heart space, and the heart chakra is what I can reference to love, which is the foundation of the self journeys. So this fourth foundation of self journeys is love. The first foundation is G self. The second foundation was unity, and the third foundation is peace, while the fourth foundation is love. This fourth foundation of self journeys is love, and there are many reasons why this particular foundation is very important of the spiritual centers of your self journeys practice. And it's so much to speak about when it comes to love. It'll probably be more than one video when I reach the discussion to discuss the love foundation of self journeys practice. But furthermore, I want to get into the higher chakras now, in which the next chakra we're getting to, the fifth chakra, and the fifth foundation for self journeys is truth. Truth. Everything coming from the throat chakra. The throat chakra, aligning with the truth foundation of self journeys, represents being able to speak. So with those first lower chakras, it was about observation, acceptance, and forgiveness. So in the midst of that power and heart space, there needs to be a format allowing you to be forgiving of the past, of yourself, of others, and of things that you cannot control, and just having acceptance and understanding. And I'll reference the serenity prayer for people who don't know about it, because that particular prayer is short and sweet, but it is so concise and perfect to the importance of being able to allow yourself to be observing of things before you speak. Just be silent and just observe, and then allow yourself to accept what you're seeing, so that you can open up space in your heart to forgive anything that may or may not be a burden to your sight at that point. And as we move forward into the sixth foundation of self journeys, we're also moving into the sight, as I just mentioned, which is the foundation of self journeys is wisdom. And the chakra name for it is the third eye chakra. And the third eye chakra allows you to have your third eye to life. Our real eyes, the ones we're given, whether we can use them or not, they were given for world sight. But this third eye, we all have as well. And it may have been born with a veil, it may not have been, but we all have this third eye chakra. And just know that it's explosive when it comes to the wisdom part of your foundation self journeys, because everything that is shown to you through your third eye is very valuable to your individual existence, as well as if you are a warrior or a cycle breaker in your family, it allows you to assist your family in further generations, because the children, once we are all born into this world, we all are the future. We are the important ones when the future is at hand. So even in my generation of millennials, we are now kind of taking the more backseat as we are birthing the next generation. So I don't have any children just yet, but I understand the importance of, and through my sight, the wisdom I have been given through being able to actually practice the wisdom foundation, I've been able to see more of the importance of being intentional to life and to the process and destination self journeys. And last but not least, the seventh foundation of self journeys and the seventh chakra, the crown chakra, and the spirit foundation of self journeys. The spirit foundation is aligned with the crown chakra, simply because the spirit, it gives you the life you need. That is the higher self. That is your spirit that we're speaking about, and your spirit cannot be ignored, especially if you want the anointing of the Holy Spirit, or if you want the blessing of divine spirits. It is important to allow yourself to reach the spirit foundation of your self journeys and your crown chakra to open up the doorway for you to reach an understanding about your soul. And I will do another video speaking more about the higher foundations of self journeys. But for now, I want to continue with a few pink plush conversations about everything aligning with these first 7 foundations of self journeys. I hope that you all enjoyed this conversation about destination self journeys, and I hope that you all will join me further for more talks. These talks will be more so me discussing more about this particular practice and my views, my perspectives, aligning with the resources and the foundations that I've grown through, as well as the things that I've been introduced to. As I learn and I grow and I thrive, I will share with my channel. So please join SelfJourneyS. Tell your friends to search the @ sign and SelfJourneyS. That's SelfJourneys. I hope you enjoyed everything I spoke today about the SelfJourneyS foundational pillars, as well as all of the background information about why this has began. And I'm just looking forward to tuning in more with you all. Hopefully someday I can actually have panels, conversations, and bigger discussions, and even conversations with my spouse, so that you can get a male and feminine, a masculine and feminine perspective from a man and a woman in the rightful energies that we were given. And also with other people who are utilizing their energies in different ways that are suitable to them. This is a non-judgment channel, a non-judgment practice, and judgment, the only form of judgment that is allowed is self-judgment and the judgment that you receive between you and the divine. I send you all love, and I send you all true healing energy. And G-Self, unity, peace, love, truth, wisdom, and spirit. This is Bree. I'll talk to you all again soon. Thank you for tuning in. Bye.